Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I am your host, Solaris BlueRaven. My wonderful guest tonight is Cheryl Costa. We're discussing her new book, UFO Sighting, Desk Reference 2001 through 2015, which is going to be coming available probably within the next week on Amazon.com. All right, Cheryl, is there anything else you wanted to add about your new book? I know you wanted to switch gears into the craft on the next hour.
Let's do that. The biggest thing is the book will be, if you're on social media and if you're in any of the UFO groups, the major UFO groups on Facebook, we'll be making announcements. We have as they say, an advertising page on Facebook ready to go. It isn't turned down yet because Amazon hasn't released the book because we haven't authorized them to. Like I said, sometime between now and the first of the month, we promise it will not be released on April Fool's Day.
Mm-hmm.
We'll wait a couple of days, but it's coming out very soon. And like I said, now it's not a cheap book. It's like a $39.95 kind of book because it's big. But it's like a really excellent reference book. If you have books on UFOs, you're going to want this thing because it's got all the stats for the United States for the last 15 years.
I think it's perfect. Yeah, actually, that's a reasonable price. I don't think that's bad at all.
And once more, the title, then let's switch gears to the craft. The title is The UFO Sighting Desk Reference, United States 2001-2015.
Perfect.
By Cheryl Costa and Linda Miller Costa.
Oh, I can't wait. So it would be nice if you have it for Ostara. So that'd be like 21st or 22nd.
It would be.
You think that's too soon?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
We'll see. We're putting the final manuscript up tomorrow. We'll probably have our last proof by about then. And if the proof's okay, we get it by FedEx, and it's okay. I think it will probably go live somewhere the last week of the month.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Oh, it's exciting. All right. Well, I'm going to be hunting for it. So make sure you. Oh, okay. Yeah, let's switch gears. But I definitely am interested in that book, so I can't wait till it goes live. All right, so where do you want to start with the craft tonight? I know you had a lot on your mind.
Well, okay. This is complicated. I've decided to write. I tried to write most senior priestesses try to write their proverbial book of magic. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I did about 10 years ago. And my eldest daughter, who's in her 30s, and she's quite a talented adept on her own. Okay, she trained with a different teacher. And she trained with me, but she also trained with several other people to get some diversity, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And she took a look at the book, and she felt that I was making the magic too easy. And she felt that she quite literally said, I think you're handing out loaded shotguns to third graders.
Wow.
Because I went into it very nuts and bolts, excuse expression. She made it equivalent to one of these Time Life How to Do It books.
Funny.
And so I set it on the shelf for about 2 years, and I came back and looked at it, and I tended to agree with her. And I quite literally took it in the backyard and burned it.
Wow.
Okay, for good reason. There's karmic implications if somebody gets into trouble with the stuff you're teaching.
Right.
And so what I've decided to do, something came up sometime recently, and I dug out an old list of what I want to call it, a list of my 21 rules for metaphysical students, and I used that as a basis for a small Kindle book. And my spouse, again, the publisher, looked at this and said, "Why don't you do a series instead of doing the big book that everybody else does? Why don't you do a series of small Kindle books in the 10, 20,000 word range kind of thing?"
Mm-hmm.
And make a series. And so my craft name is Lady Cassandra St. John. So we said, okay, Lady Cassandra St. John's Metaphysical Lessons. that's the series title, and then like this first one will be 21 Rules for Metaphysical Students.
Mm-hmm. I like it.
Okay, and there's about there's as little as a 200 word to about a 2,000 word essay behind every one of these rules. Okay, so would you like to hear some of the rules?
Oh yeah, roll it. Let's hear it.
Okay, rule number 1: you come to the magical arts of your own free will. Now, I don't want you come to me and you tell me, oh, I'm just going to study magic because my girlfriend does.
Right.
Or I want to study magic because my mother insisted. I don't want you.
Exactly. Do you get people like that? I mean, in the past, have you had people do that?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And I the way I wrote this thing is the way it usually works. I'll be sitting in the coffee shop and someone will come up to me and say, "I know you're Lady Cassandra, and I'd like to study magic with you." And I'll ask them these questions to make sure they're not there under duress. Somebody just it isn't like a shotgun wedding. You're going to go study witchcraft or something.
Oh, that's funny.
And and I've heard some of the craziest reasons for people coming in to study. Oh, my girlfriend insisted. No, I'm sorry, that doesn't cut it. That's like saying I'm going to convert to Catholicism for my girlfriend. No.
Exactly.
And so I have a problem with that. And then also I ask them what their other reasons are, if they truly are interested. And if they give me these big, noble goals, I think they're full of baloney. Okay? And if they're too serious, I blow them off, tell them to go away and think about it, and come back and talk to me in a week or two. Okay? But if I can engage them in something silly, maybe I'll take them. Because anybody who's got any experience in magic knows that it's like counterintuitive. It doesn't always make sense. In fact, it rarely makes sense. So I've taken students before, and people who are prospective students, I'll sit there and I'll buy them a cup of coffee, and I say, can you answer me a question? And they'll say, like what? And I said, well, why do they call it a hot water heater? It's really a cold water heater, isn't it?
Oh, gosh.
And because it's so silly and off the wall to them, that tells me, and if they can't wrap their head around it and have a sort of a joking conversation with me about it, that tells me they're too rigid, and they don't have the elastic reality necessary to practice magic.
That's a good point.
So then there's rule number 2. You can study magic with whomever you like. If you choose to study magic with me, it's my way or the highway.
Makes sense.
Does that make sense to you?
Yeah. Makes sense to me.
I get a lot of people that say, well, but. I said, no. If you come to my house and you want to learn my way of doing it, that's it. You're here to hear my way of doing it. Don't sit here and quote 20 other people you saw in a book someplace else. Don't have a second instructor teaching you someplace else. God forbid you do that. Okay? Because most other teachers don't want you studying with somebody else either. They want to be, you're either under their tutelage or you're not.
Right.
Feel free to interject on this. I mean, I'm just debating this with you.
No, I think it's really good. And I have a question here, and I was wondering,
Sure,
you want me to wait until? Okay, this is about spirit cooking and the artist of a woman. He wants to ask what your opinion is of this woman who does the spirit cooking, Marina Abramovic.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, so apparently she does some kind of spirit cooking. I'm not real familiar with her. I think she uses a lot of blood in what she does. I was just. Okay.
Well, okay. Let me get for that. Well, let me slide down to a different rule though. That will probably accommodate this. Okay. Rule number 7: we make and bake bread to teach magic. You will learn how to make bread or go home.
There you go.
Okay. And rule number 8: if you can't make the bread, you'll never make the magic. Now, do you want me to explain that?
For our listeners, yes.
Okay, for the listeners. Okay, I teach how to make a simple loaf of white bread. Okay, and I've had big classes where we'd have me and two other priestesses would throw a big, what we'll call an industrial training class for witchcraft. It's like an initial class, and we'll have 50, 60 people show up to this first class. And one of us will talk about the community, another one will talk about what things you need to have and that type of thing, and how to find a good teacher. And then I will usually wrap the last hour of the presentation up by saying, okay, I'm going to teach you your first spell. And the lesson is I give them the ingredients for making bread. I give them the very specific instructions of where to buy the materials, exactly what brands to buy, and how to bake it, make it and bake it. 10% of the class gets up and stomps out and says, that's not magic, and they stomp out. Okay? Well, that's my first screening. As the coach used to say, there's the first cut. Okay? And there are the people who go home and try to do it, and they screw up, and they won't come back because they screwed up. They can't accept failure. And if you do magic, you better learn how to accept failure because you're going to screw up. And then there are the people who come back with that loaf of bread, and sometimes it doesn't look too good. Some of them are perfect. A lot more of them are not. But I'll explain to them what they did and what they didn't do right. Just by looking at the bread, I can tell what they did right and what they did wrong. And we use the bread as a metaphor. If people go out and buy spell books, and they say, oh, I got a spell, I'm going to whip up this thing. Well, if you don't use the exact ingredients, you don't do it exactly the time they tell you to do it, it's not going to work. And I hear this from the scientific people. They'll say to you, oh, magic's not repeatable. I say, well, go home and make a loaf of bread and tell me if you can repeat that.
Right.
Especially if you've never done it before. Okay? And it's a honed art. And I tell people, witchcraft is an art, a science, and a lifestyle. The art is that art. It's that tweaking like anything else, and baking is a good example of it. It is a science because there are rules to this stuff. And I have a lot of people argue with me, oh, no, it can't be a science. And I says, look, most everything I've ever seen in magic acts a lot like quantum physics. So don't tell me it's not a science.
Exactly.
And it does affect your lifestyle, because if you become the person you have to become to practice good, reliable magic, it changes your style, it changes you. And so that's kind of the flavor, and that's why we use bread. And what was happening with the bread is that as people got to the point where they could master the bread, we started teaching using the bread as a metaphor, okay, for the magic. We would take and mix the dry ingredients with big plastic bowls while listening to belly dancing music, and we'd be dancing around in a circle, mixing the dry goods together. You wouldn't believe how robust a loaf of bread you get out of that kind of thing.
I believe it. Yeah, all that energy.
And with some of my classes, I used to have to go up to Sam's Club and buy these 50-pound bags of flour because people would show up at my house on Saturday morning to make ritual bread. And it became a secret handshake with everybody I taught. If you came to a festival someplace and said, oh, yeah, I studied with Lady Cassandra St. John. Well, if it was a couple of my students, they might look at you and engage. The secret handshake is they might engage you into a conversation about making bread, and if you didn't know what you were talking about, they knew you weren't.
Oh, funny. That's great. I love it.
That was the secret handshake. So let's talk about some of the rules. Okay, rule number 3. You have my perfect love and trust until you violate it. I trust you to be who you are and what you are until you violate my trust. Rule number 4, your heart and responsibility must be 100% in your magic or go home. You don't come in and say, hey, I think it'd be kind of cool to do this, and not have your heart into it. Either you're going to do this or you're not going to do this.
Exactly. Those are good. I like those.
You like these?
Yeah.
The more magic you rule 5. The more magic you know, the less you use.
True.
And people don't get that. They say, "Well, you go to all this trouble to learn how to do it, and but you don't use it." I said, "Yeah, there's a price for using it, and I know I'm sitting on this unlimited resource, but I like to. It takes a certain amount of me to make it work. It's a lot of work to do good magic, and so I save it for the real special stuff."
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't get that. They seem to think they think the practice of magic is like a free gift machine, you know. And it's not. It's not. But a lot of people are in it just for the new. I know. I had a kid once that thought it was going. He was going to get a new motorcycle this week, a new surfboard next week, a new game player next week, and a drone the week after that. You know, I mean, he just thought it was going to be this source of free gifts. And I had to whack him upside the head.
That's funny.
Let's see. Got other rules here. See, I told you about the breads. Oh, I love this. Rule number 9. Buying 30 books about magic won't help you if you don't read the one I gave you.
Oh, that's great. These are classic. Oh, I love it.
Rule number 10. Use all practical, mundane methods towards your goal first. Then use magic to get that extra kick in the pants.
Nice.
And the reason I use that one, I use a show business example. I know a comedian who, she's very talented. I used to know her down in D.C., and she had a wonderful act. She had her style down. She was ready to be on the circuit. She couldn't get an appointment with an agent to save her life. So she did a working on this just to get an appointment, just to get past that hardened secretary that wouldn't let her talk to the agent. And wouldn't you know it, the next time she called in, the secretary was out and the agent answered the phone. He talked to her, he listened to her pitch, and he flat told her, "I don't have a place for you." She went home all dejected but happy. At least she got to talk to the agent. She gets home, there's a message on her answering machine. It's a colleague of that same agent who said, "Joe couldn't use you, but I can." The agent told a friend.
Nice.
Okay.
Very good.
That's magic at its best.
Indeed. Yeah. I like that.
Let's see. Now this came up recently. Since the election, there's been a lot of buzz in the craft community. There were a number of people who wanted to do or working towards our leadership. Okay. And I'm sorry. Let's say we're talking Wicca magic for the most part. You don't do bindings or workings against other people if you're Wiccan. It's against the rules.
I agree.
Okay, it's against the law, and that's it. And so we have this rule 11: never bind another with magic, for you risk binding yourself for a lifetime.
Yep.
Okay. Rule number 12: never pray for the demise of your enemies. Simply make love and kindness offerings to ripen your enemy's karma. The force will do the rest. And that's the truth. It really is. I know people who have wanted to go out there and work a big, nasty something on somebody, and I said, "Who made you judge, jury, and executioner?"
Right. Yep.
You know, get your ego out of your magic. You know.
Very good.
And worry about yourself. Worry about your family. Don't worry about these other big nasties and the drug cartel kingpins and Osama bin Laden and all these people. Don't worry about it. You don't need to worry about them. Karma will deal with them eventually.
I agree. Well said. Yeah.
there's people who think I'm old-fashioned by spouting off these rules. And some people think I'm being very contentious by saying so. But I'm sorry. If you want to study with magic with me, I'm sorry. I'm old and crotchety. These are my rules. Okay.
No, you're an excellent role model. I told you that off air, and it's true. People need to hear this. And and I still think there are a lot of people out there in the craft. I don't think they're real witches. I don't know what to call them, Cheryl. I just think they're kind of like tourists or something. It's just, yeah. They don't seem to have a foundation.
I make a point of that in these rules, in the narratives that I wrote underneath these rules.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who that call themselves craft, but they won't embrace the word witch.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one of my early teachers said to me, and I'm going to pick on the term pagan. Okay, there's a lot of pagans out here who want to come to all the festivals and do all the ceremonies and have all the fun and go to all the parties, and they won't embrace the term witch because they don't think it applies to them. Fine, but then there are the people out here who are the solitary witches, who initiate themselves to the gods, and they claim the term witch. They say, "I am a witch" 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
They are making a vow, and priestesses that I have studied with said, I'll trust somebody who's made the vow before I trust other people who say they're craft.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Okay. And that's an important thing. It's about making a commitment. And yeah, I know the term witchcraft has baggage with it. It has other things with it as well. But I explain it in this book. Claiming the witch title, if you're a solitary practitioner, think of this: you are a monastery of one.
Okay? I like that.
A monastery is not a building; it is a community. And there's 2 kinds of community. There's community of many. So if we got a coven or a collection of covens or a witch clan, that's a community of many. There's also a community. It's like the old army term they used to use for the army a few years ago, an army of one.
Mm-hmm.
And you're an individual, but you are also part of a bigger thing. And as a bigger thing, we are one. That's
right.
A monastery works on a similar harmony type of thing. We are one. And a lot of people miss that. And they think, oh, I'm eclectic this, I'm eclectic that. And I say, well, wait a minute. Okay, if you're going to study a particular tradition, that's fine and dandy. I'm good with that if you want to be an eclectic. But too many people are I study a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. Well, if you were doing this with a computer program and you were studying a little bit of WordPerfect and a little bit of Word and a little bit of WordStar and a little bit of WordPad to try and learn how to do a word processor, it wouldn't work very good, would it?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, pick a product and stay with it. Granted, now people will say, "Well, Cheryl, you've changed your tradition a couple of times." I said, "No, I've increased my study. I've always been Wiccan. I happen to study some other traditions on the side, but my core belief has always been in Wicca, and I call myself a witch." Mm-hmm. And while I studied and lived in a Buddhist monastery for a number of years, I did so in a tradition that respected magical craft. The Orthodox Tibetan tradition respects magical craft because their ancient 1,000-year-old roots go back to Tibetan shamans.
Right.
Okay. So, that's kind of where my flavors come. Let's go back to rules a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Never use magic to attract money you might not like where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Now, people say to me, well, wait a minute. Again, this is that gift machine. Magic's about giving me gifts, Yeah, okay. I know somebody who wished for $1 million, $500,000, and she didn't feel so great about it after the industrial accident. They had a payoff that had $500,000, and she never walked again.
Yeah.
You follow my drift,
right? Yeah.
So this is the kind of stuff I've seen over the years. Or somebody asked for that huge windfall of money, and both their parents were killed in a car wreck, and there was this huge beneficiary payment. Jesus, the price is awfully steep, isn't it?
Right.
So never ask for money. Ask for the resources to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Give you an example. I've asked for the resources several times to do certain things, and guess what? I've had access to recording studios, television studios. I never had to pay a cent for them, but I didn't ask for the money to rent a TV studio. I just simply asked for the resources, and somebody did a favor, and the next thing you know, I've got access to a television studio or access to a radio station.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Ask for the resources. The universe will come through. Rule 15, the butterfly effect applies. Small causes have large effects. Use magic ever so gently, for all things are connected everywhere and every when.
Mm-hmm.
I see new students always trying to do something with magic. Their early spell casting and things. The first thing they try to do is produce some kind of an effect. I hate to say it this way, is reminiscent of something they saw in a Harry Potter movie. Lots of whiz-bang and light.
Right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
getting at?
Yeah.
And I tell them, I says, look, real magic is as gentle as a baby's breath.
It is.
And you don't expect whiz-bang. In fact, if you start going for whiz-bang, you have no idea what kind of damage may have done on the other side of the galaxy. You know.
You're a good teacher. I love this. This is great.
Thank you. Let's see. I will teach you magic with informed consent. If you screw up, it's on you. I warned you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
Don't come back and say, oh, I got this problem. You taught me how to do this. You know, no. If you sign up to learn with me, I will teach you the basic rules. If you don't follow the rules, if you don't do it right, it's on you. Okay? And then the rule 17, it goes along with that. Don't whine about what you screwed up. Suck it up and make it right.
Mm-hmm. Course correction. Yeah.
This is the benefit of 40 years in this stuff. Let's see. Rule 18. Be careful what you ask for. You will probably get it eventually. People do not. There's two things modern magic books don't talk about. They'll teach you how to light candles. They'll teach you how to burn incense. They'll teach you how to dance around in funny clothes around the fire on a moonlit night. They won't teach you about temporal issues, time, and they won't teach you about karma.
Mm-hmm.
Karma, I don't care how good a magical practice you do, if you're not supposed to be working that spell and there's some particular reason for time and season of that thing not happening right this minute, maybe happening 6 months from now, maybe happening tomorrow, but not now, karma and time and temporal, time and seasons type phenomena will not let it happen.
Mm-hmm.
I've been seeing spells cast that did not come to fruition for 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But those of us who saw it happen said, well, at least it happened at the right time.
Right.
That's what a lot of people, our generation of people who want it now, instant gratification, they can't deal with that. And there's a lot of people in the craft community who don't believe in karma. Oh, that's a Buddhist concept. No. It seems to be the law of the universe. And I tell people, look, you may not believe in karma, but karma believes in you.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to interject the question.
I think this is well said. This is a lot of good information here tonight. And once again, I'm looking forward to this. Now, you said you're going to put these up, but the book itself, your metaphysical lessons, they're not officially available to access yet, or no?
No, they're not.
Okay.
They're going to be in the form of Kindle books that we're going to put on. Amazon. They're in editing right now, as they say.
Excellent.
The UFO book is taking precedence of my editor's time. But I just put the finishing touches on this particular lesson book, the one of the 21 rules. And then from there on, I'm going to go other Lady Cassandra, such as St. John's lessons, and I'll take on other subject matters. And there'll be little 10, 12,000 word Kindle books, which seems to be a sweet spot for those kinds of books. This the old, I don't know how old you are, but it's the old idea of pulp books, so little short, cheap pulp books,
Yeah.
And so that's what these are going to be. Okay, I got a couple more rules for you here. There's no little bit of working magic. If you are in for a dime, you are in for a dollar. And the flavor for that is, I run into people all the time who say they dabble. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And dabble is the person who changes their own oil and all of that on their car, and every now and then they decide, well, I'm going to tinker. And if they tinker and then the car doesn't run, and they have to drag it to the garage to get it worked on. Okay? And there's an old joke in the garage. The repair is $50 if you don't work on it. If you do work on it, it's $200.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have to straighten out all the goofy things you did to it.
Right.
And it applies
to
magic the same way. Too many people don't do magic, or they've got a half-assed kind of appreciation for it, and then some situation comes up. They go out and buy a spell book or something, and they think, well, I'm going to do this. Well, it goes back to that thing. Have you ever baked a loaf of bread before? Ever? Do you have any idea what you're getting involved with? And how many people have? I mean, hell, I did a load of not chocolate chip cookies, peanut butter cookies a couple of weeks ago.
That sounds good.
I haven't made them in 20 years.
Mm.
Would you believe I screwed them up?
They sound good.
Oh, they tasted terrific, but everybody who tasted them said there's something missing. I didn't put any brown sugar in there. And the brown sugar wasn't in there, and because it wasn't in there, it didn't caramelize inside of the substance of the cookie, and these cookies crumbled very easily, where a real good peanut butter cookie doesn't crumble.
Right. Yeah.
It's chewy. And that's because the brown sugar caramelizes inside the cookie during its baking and kind of holds it together. And that's where I screwed up. I forgot to put some brown sugar in it.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Hey, even a senior witch forgets how to do these things, That's why we have spell books. That's why we have grimoires. We keep notes. What's that recipe for that?
Well, it's chemistry.
Alchemy, it's chemistry.
Yeah.
You bet. Okay. Let's see. Rule 20. Magical students must learn. I'm sorry. Magical students learn best when their cell phones are off or locked in their car.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I have had people come to me, and especially when I used to be at a Buddhist temple. You'd be sitting there trying to do this meditation practice of some sort, and there'd be somebody sitting over there in a lotus position on a pillow, and all of a sudden you hear some buzz or some music or something, and they reach down underneath themselves like they've been hatching an egg or something, and they pull out a cell phone, and they check it real quick. Well, it disturbed everybody in the prayer room.
Exactly.
In this meditation space. I have had people bring these phones into circle space and disrupt the circle. And I told them, and I'll question them. I said, when I lived in D.C., I'll say, before you bring a phone into my circle, are you a member of the White House staff and you have to be on call? And I've had people who were. I had people who were part of the national security establishment, people member of my circle. Those people were on call 24/7. Okay. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, most people were willing to put their phones either off or out in their car during the time we were doing magical work in the house.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
And if they weren't willing to do that, my way or the highway, leave.
Exactly. Well, I've had people take firearms in circle.
Oh, God.
Yeah, we didn't know until later. But yeah.
Oh. Any of my students ever did that, that'd be it. No, gone.
Yeah.
And I've found
this was an adult professional, by the way. This is like, I was shocked when I heard that later on. Yeah.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me.
No, I'm not. No. We didn't know until later on. So, yeah.
that's, okay, I have another rule in there: is get your ego out of the magic, and
I like
that's
that.
another example of it there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Rule 21, and then, I'll answer questions here. Rule 21, the secret. What happens in magical space stays in magical space.
Mm-hmm.
And people say to me, what's the big secret? I said, there isn't a big secret. The big secret is very frequently when we're doing workings or things like this, especially in a coven situation or a circle situation, it's about developing harmony with the other people you're working magic with.
Right.
And if sometimes very personal things are shared only with coven mates, and it's as sensitive as being in a lawyer's office or as sensitive as being on a psychiatrist's couch.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't get that through people's heads. I've tried. I said, that's what the secretness is about. It's a privacy thing,
Yeah. Courtesy 101.
That too, Courtesy 101. So those are my basic 21 rules for new magical students.
I love it. I think it's awesome. So are you still teaching students? It sounds like you're really not teaching anymore, right?
No. What's happened is I've had half a dozen senior teachers come to and say, please write down the stuff that you've done. Please do it. Well, I like I said, I wasn't going to do the classic priestess goes out and does her grimoire type of thing. That wasn't my style. So I've decided to do this kind of thing. I'm not going to take on, quote, what I'm going to call Wicca 101 type students anymore. I'm just not going to do it, okay? There's other people that can do that very nicely, okay?
Right.
I tend to bore them out of their mind because it's like having a rocket scientist come in and teach a basic school of how to fly your drone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm too much for what the project requires.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can get out of control very quickly as far as how deep. I tried to teach one class of basic students. I tried about 20 years ago, 2003. I had one class of 18 students, raw, basic 18 students want to study basic metaphysics. And I said, okay, I'm going to teach you a non-traditional approach to this thing. And I started out by teaching them how to do bread and how to do remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, every one of them started talking to their wicked friends. Well, that doesn't sound like how you're supposed to be trained. And, of course, all their friends at school were telling them, oh, no, that's not how it's supposed to be done, And so suddenly I've got all this criticism from people I don't even know telling these people, oh, no, you're not getting really good training. And what they were getting was I was teaching them how to divine with modern 21st century techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And if you learn how to meditate and how to divine, it connects you to the universe. And anything you do later for spell casting is much easier because you're already wired into all that is.
Right.
Too many people start out with spell casting and don't even give lip service to divining.
Exactly.
Or meditation. Oh, meditation. Oh, Buddhists do that. They sit on a pillow. No. It's about quieting the monkey chatter in your brain so you can have a clear, focused thought.
Exactly.
And that is critical to practicing magic and to planning magical practice. And I tell people this, and it goes over their heads. So I don't teach 101 students anymore. I teach the teachers.
Excellent. Very good.
If they want to know, I'll sit down with them online. I'll sit down with them on the phone. If they're regional to me, we'll sit down over a cup of coffee, and we'll sit over there like a couple of hens, and we'll talk it out.
Nice.
But this little Lady Cassandra's lessons are meant not so much as how to do it, as much as these lessons are going to be a lot more about head shaping. if I get you reading it and thinking about it a certain way, then when you do some deep research and reading about the stuff, you'll have kind of a framework to go in and research that aspect of magic. I'm not going to tell you how to do it, but I'm going to tell you how you should be thinking about it when you go in to do it.
Right. And let me ask you something. What is your impression of children learning witchcraft? What is an appropriate age group?
That depends on the kid, you know. The foster daughters, that all my daughters were foster daughters, okay? And I had two that came into my home. One was 2 years old, the other was 6 weeks old when they came into my home. This is 25 years ago, okay? And they were in circle with us. They danced in the rain with us. They went to festival with us, you know. And if there was a main ritual, they stood there in the main ritual circle with us. Did they start practicing magic? No, not till they were probably in their junior in high school. Did I take the eldest one on? Okay, bring her into class. And to be honest with you, I probably shouldn't have even brought her into it at that point because she wasn't ready for it. And that's I don't. I hear a lot of, as they say, grandmother, mother, and daughter type of training. I don't know if you have to have a really good relation with, quote, your mother or mother. What's the term I want to use? The person who is acting as your mother. Okay. You have to have a certain type of relationship with them where you're pals. And too many mother and daughter relationships aren't like that.
Right.
You know, so it's always better to have somebody else do it. Now, my eldest, she's in her mid-30s. I'm going to see her in about a month. She's going to take a train up here to Syracuse to spend a weekend with me. And she's the one that criticized my original book. Okay? And I probably wouldn't have listened to anybody else, but I did listen to her. She's got a master's degree. She's on her way to have a PhD. She's an academic at a major university in Washington, D.C. She's a smart chick. But she did her serious training with somebody else, a peer of mine, because it was inappropriate for me to teach her the things that she wanted to learn. It was better to hear it from somebody else where she would take the lessons more seriously. And it worked out much better that way. Okay.
Oh yeah.
And so I let my peer teacher. He Big Bear. He was very good. He took her under his arm, and he showed her the way of the world from a magical context. But on the other hand, other people have passed their kids off to me to learn. I say teenage years, but the thing is, you know, I'm a good friend. I used to be a good friend with Silver Ravenwolf. And she is a firm believer in teen craft. Okay?
Right.
Well, when she wrote those books, her kids were teens. And they grew up in a craft household. And everything she said made sense in that context. But for kids not growing up in a craft receptive household, I don't think that applies.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see, if you're growing up in a Presbyterian household and maybe you don't practice Presbyterianism really all that seriously, coming into it when you're 16, I don't think you've had the head shaping for it. Till you're getting into your late teens, early 20s. And I think that's... Now, I grew up in a household and with a grandparent household where my grandparents were spiritualists. from a young age, I mean, I was used to people levitating tables and coming over to Grandma's house, and I'd be playing with the dogs in the other room while Grandma and Mom and everybody were in the other room levitating tables and running Ouija boards. You know,
Wow.
It's a different environment for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that applies to other students. The other problem I run up against too is there's an awful lot of kids out there, and you're probably going to get some hostile mail about this if I say this.
Oh, go ahead.
I've had a number of people say this to me on Facebook. You know, that come to reach out to me on Facebook and, I want to practice chaos magic,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to go look it up, see what they were doing. And frankly, I saw the chaos magic in its essence form. If you stood back and looked at it, it was a form of shamanism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I respected it. I respected it for what it was. As that kind of thing, kind of that wild and crazy. In fact, in Buddhism, we call them the crazy yogis.
Mm-hmm.
There are people in the Buddhist community who refer to me as a crazy yogi. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
it's an honorable term. Crazy yogis tend to walk where things. What's the word? I'm struggling for a word here. We tend to walk where the grass doesn't grow, but where it grows really high.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't ever make any sense. It all sounds like babble, but it's like a dream. It made sense while you were there.
Right.
Okay, and yogi magic is like that. We have a completely different way of looking at the world. Well, I looked at the chaos magic and I said, well, okay, I see those elements there, and any well-grounded, experienced craft practitioner probably would identify with most of those elements. But these kids are looking at it like it's a rebellious type of magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From this viewpoint, I saw what I saw them, how they're approaching it and everything. I saw it as sloppy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's chaos, I guess. Another thing is, I think it's just the role model thing. Once again, it doesn't seem like they have anybody there who's setting a foundation for them.
Yeah, they seem to have thrown ethics out the window, and anything goes.
Mm-hmm.
And do anything you like, any way you like. And boy, that's a recipe for disaster.
Right, with no consequences is really, yeah.
With no consequences and, quote, no responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And I'm not saying everybody has to come into my coven, has to feel like they're going to military school or something like this. But it's like going to a good. I always use the term a good cooking school. I'm going to show you the best way that we've found to do it. If you want to develop your own style thereafter, learn as my fencing instructor said, learn the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I don't see that with the chaos magic people. And I've had several long conversations with several of them online, and they're on this whole eclectic, I can do anything I want kick. And like I said, that's juggling very sharp knives juggling very sharp knives in the air when you don't know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. I didn't know you fenced. That's awesome.
I'm not very good at it.
Well, I fenced too, and that's why that's pretty cool.
My spouse is much better at it than I am. I'm more of a hack and slash with a broadsword.
Hey, as long as you can get your message across. That's great.
But I always work with a two-handed 48-inch sword too, so it's me.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know. That's the biggest complaint that I had about some of these
Mm-hmm.
people coming to me with this whole idea of chaos magic. And I think there is this what I'm going to say, a cool appeal, chaos magic. Well, it's outside of the mainstream of magical craft, so it's a little on the rebellious side,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of that factor to it, you know.
Right.
Would you believe the craft community has sort of become the establishment?
Mm.
And I about died when somebody told me, used sort of like the hippie term, told me I was the establishment of craft. I'm going, oh my God, you
Wow.
know, how far we have fallen, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
but as far as teaching kids, um, I think it has to be done with a mentor. I think a child, if they're going to be learning as a child, they have to learn growing up and in stages, nothing serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in the family trad, you do learn it, but I think a lot of it, you don't really learn a lot of technique or anything. You probably learn all the basics and fundamentals growing up, but it doesn't all make sense until like you're maybe in your teens and you've sort of come of age.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a lot of that. And I've had people who, I won't touch anybody under 18.
I think that's wise. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And also, what I don't know if you ever worked on anything like a biography, but I think you should do a book on your biography if you could.
Why?
I don't know, because you're just very interesting and you're very intelligent. You have a lot of different information, and I think people would love to know about you. I mean, I know you have a lot of different books, and I love
Well,
that.
there's okay. Here's what's in the works, and this isn't commonly known. I was a transgender activist back when it was a very, very dangerous thing to do back in the late 70s, early 80s, 90s.
Mhm.
Okay, and some of the early visibility for transgenders was on things like Phil Donahue and Gary Collins' Hour magazine and Geraldo, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
those people were me in those days. And I was I was among that early group of people who went out there and spoke sanely about that topic matter. Um, that activism got me identified, and basically I was approached by Duke University some time back, and they want my papers.
Mhm.
So now what that means, a lot of people don't know what's it mean when a university takes your papers. That means that all of my stuff, my writing, my books, my plays, my videos, my radio show tapes, all of that stuff, my UFO book or books, my craft book or books, and my memoirs will become kind of immortalized in some major universities' library.
Mm.
And that means somebody 50 years or 100 years from now will probably get a PhD studying my stuff.
I think that's wonderful. That's
And
incredible.
I'm rather flattered about that.
I am very
Uh,
happy for you. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes.
It just sort of got finalized a couple of weeks ago. In
And you've
fact,
been hush hush about this, huh?
yeah, we
Oh, I'm
have.
so
I've
glad I
kind of
mentioned that
loosely,
then.
I've loosely, well, no, I loosely knew that Duke was interested for about the
Mhm.
last 10 years, but nobody ever really talked to me. And then about 3 or 4 months ago, my spouse, the librarian, communicated with the special collections librarian down at Duke and say, "Are you guys going to do anything with this? Cheryl's retiring, and whatever." And they said yes, and so some earnest talks got going, and it literally affected our estate planning. We're going to leave them a substantial amount of money. I've got 30 plays. Maybe I'll have more before I shuffle off the mortal coil. But the idea is my plays require maintenance for licenses. People come to me and say, we want to do your play at our college or our library or our community theater. Somebody has to license it.
Mhm. Right.
Right now, I do. So if I hand my copyrights over to them for management, they will have to be responsible. So we've gone to our lawyers, we've set up an estate that if I died tomorrow, there would be an estate established as an endowment to give them the funding to manage my papers and my
Wow.
license my copyrights and things.
Mm-hmm.
And our intent is with these craft books are, that's another motivation I've had to write the craft books. I want something like that to go into this collection.
Yeah, it's a legacy. There's no doubt. We're just about out of time here, Cheryl. We have about 2 minutes plus or minus. But I just have to thank you so much for joining us. It's always an honor and a pleasure. I really, really enjoy you because you're so intelligent and you're just an excellent role model. I really appreciate it. Also, a happy Stara. So once again, let everybody know how to contact you and also how they can access the new book coming out.
The new book is called The UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States, 2001 through 2015 by Cheryl Costa and Linda Miller Costa, and it will be available on Amazon by the end of the month or into early April. It'll be available.
Excellent.
And, that's the key thing. And then if they start watching for craft books, there'll be some books up there by Lady Cassandra St. John. There's going to be a series of craft books. Lady Cassandra's Lessons is a series, and we expect those to go up maybe by summer. We'll have those up.
Those are going to be incredible. I can't wait. That's going to be great. Well, thank you so much, Cheryl. Like I said, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me on your show again.
Oh, anytime. I look forward to having you back at some point in the continuum too. So, and also want everybody to stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Mecky coming up next to sell you on tonight from Down Under, as they always do with their incredible show. Apparently, they have a topic of ontology tonight, the philosophical study of the nature of being, becoming, existence, or reality, as well as the basic categories of being and their relations. So that should be an interesting show, everybody. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks, everybody in chat, and have a wonderful evening. Happy Ostara. Thank you again, Cheryl.
Bye.
Bye-bye.